Hello and welcome. Today we're going to take a look at the two newest Viseart quads. These are the Petits 4 in Tyrian, which is a beautiful purple color story. That's what's on my eyes right now. And then Praline Epice. So we'll compare this to the original Praline as well. We've got a few comparisons for all of these. Let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start off with the Praline Epice. So let's go ahead and we're going to swatch this. You can see that our first shade here is a really beautiful metallic. It is incredibly creamy and soft to the touch. And you can see that we have kind of this peachy golden hue to it. So there is a little bit of like that peachy orange to it, but it's still going to be primarily a gold. Then the shade next to it, same formula. This is also, super creamy. And then this one here is going to be a little bit more coppery. So you can see that both of these shades are going to be fairly warm. They're really nice shimmers and they can be pretty opaque for metallics. Then we have a matte shade, and this brown shade here, I really like this. This is a really soft brown and it's neutral. So it's really nice to have something neutral in this quad because our fourth shade here is going to be a little bit cooler. This is also going to be a metallic finish. And you can see that this is going to be a cool brown. We have a little bit of gray in there, but it's brown and not a true taupe. But you can see then we have two warm shades, a neutral and a cool tone. So you can make a variety of different looks and it's going to work well for a variety of undertones. Let's move on to the eye swatches and the demo for this quad. Now, just like all of the Viseart shadows, these are in magnetic pans. They are removable. You can buy replacements and you can easily mix and match these with other palettes. So this palette, we have 6 grams of shadow. So each pan is the 1.5 gram size, which is what is most commonly used by Viseart. So most of their other palettes, you can mix and match with this. There's a 36-month shelf life, so a 3-year shelf life, and they are made in the US. I have to say, these are always a great travel palette, this Petits 4 size. I always take one of these with me when I travel. There is no mirror with these though, so just heads up, but they're small, they're lightweight. You always have a mix of finishes. I love these. Now, according to Viseart, it says, indulge in the sugared and spicy temptation of Petits 4 Praline Epice, an enchanting winter wonderland of tasty treats. This scrumptious sister to our original Praline Petits 4 is a decadent delight that complements its sibling, unveiling 4 gloriously gilded and opulent hues, a caramelized confection of toasted toffee tones that transports you into a symphony of sugared sweetness. Petits 4 Praline Epice, a miniature morsel of gourmet glitter, features 4 new delicious shades melting onto your eyes with a pinch of spiced shimmer and a dash of molten matte magic. The harmonious sisterhood of Praline and Praline Epice elevates your gaze with a timeless signature of chic beauty. Now, I have to say, I think this is a great palette. This is a great palette for every day. You've got a mix of warm, neutral, and a cool tone shade in here. So you can mix and match and have your shades, on your eyes either be predominantly warm, predominantly cool, or so forth. So I think it's a really versatile palette. The metallic finishes on here are very rich and molten, so you can definitely glam this up for something more holiday or more date night. It's something that can be used all year, and I think it's great for every day, but it's also a very festive palette. As they mentioned, it really does make me think of like dripping caramel. So I think it's a great palette. Let's take a look at some comparisons. So here's Praline Epice, and this is the original Praline. So I wanted to show you these side by side so you can kind of see how they compare. And I'm going to go ahead and swatch these right next to the Epice so you can see those here. So that's the first shade in the original Praline, and you can see it's more of a satin version of the second shade here. It's going to be a little bit softer, but it is going to be similar in tone. Next, we have a pretty strong metallic, kind of a gold shade. You can see that that is very close though to the first shade in the Praline Epice. They are very similar. Next, this third shade, this is going to be another metallic finish. And you can see that this is going to be more of a golden brown. And it's a really pretty shade, but this is going to lean warm. And then our last shade here is a matte brown, and you can see it's going to be deeper and it has a little bit more red in it than that in the Praline Epice. It's a little bit warmer. So overall, the original Praline is going to be warmer than Praline Epice, but they really complement each other well. These two shimmer shades, the first one in Epice and the second one in Praline, they are so close that, you know, Viseart says they're new shades, but, you know, they look like dupes. So those are really, really close. Now, I also wanted to compare it with one of the other original Petit Four. This is Chocolat. So we have Praline Epice, Chocolat here. So we're just going to do some quick swatches of this one. And this is going to be a bit more of like a peachy palette, but I wanted to kind of show you how those colors look. You can see we've got more like peachy golds, and then we have this rich orangey copper shade and a rich reddish brown matte. So I feel like these palettes also complement each other very well. All right, so these are some comparisons. We have Praline Epice, Praline, and Chocolat here. So overall, I think it's a great palette, very versatile. Let's go ahead and take a look at Tyrian, which is our new purple palette. And I'm very excited to see this. So many companies, you know, we've seen a lot of purple palettes. They're still not very cool tone though, or they're like uber cool. So the first shade here, you can see this is gonna be a bit firmer in the pan, and that's because this is really more of a starlight topper. So it's not gonna swatch quite as well with a finger swatch as you'll see when I'm using it in the eye swatch. So you'll see that this really gives you a pretty concentrated version of scattered starlight. So it's definitely has a lot more sparkle to it than you might first think. I think it's actually a really pretty shade. It reminds me of a nail polish I have. So then we have this matte peach, and you can see there's a little bit of pink in there. It's not overly warm. And then we have a matte purple here. You can see that this is going to be a deep eggplant shade. We've got definitely some cooler tones in there. It's not truly a black base, but it's such a deep base that it's almost a black base. And then this last shade here is more of a duochrome. So we've got purple. You can see you've got some pink shimmer in there, and you can see a little bit of kind of a green reflect in there. To say it's not a super strong duochrome. You can definitely see stronger duochromes and multichromes from other brands like Cleona and so forth. Pat McGrath, Danessa Myricks, but it's a subtle duochrome. I think it's really pretty. And this is the major shade of my eyes right now. Before we actually start the eye swatches, I just want to go over the packaging in case you are not familiar with it. They do come with a little plastic piece. You want to keep this because it keeps any powder residue from getting out. Please note, although it looks like a square, it's not 100% perfect square. So there is a right and a wrong way to put that on. And then we close up to a little magnetic palette. So again, this is great to keep in a bag. And when you open this up, all of your information is right here on this panel. And yeah, I just think these are great. So let's move on to the eye swatches and the demo for the Tyrian quad. Now the Petit Four, they retail for $25 US. This one I think is another great quad. Most of the Petit Four quads from Viseart have been really great overall. There were a few over the years that I haven't liked, but I'm happy to say that these two are really great. Now, according to Viseart, this says, "Hark, immerse yourself in the opulence of deep winter with Petit Four Tyrian, a ravishingly rich and resplendent quad palette celebrating this magical allure of mythical Tyrian purple." This quartet is a decadent journey into antiquity where lavishly saturated matte hues meet imperial incandescence, creating a luxurious canvas for your gaze. The enchantment of Tyrian transforms the eyes with opulence and mythical beauty. And then they go on to talk about how, again, as I mentioned before, these pants are interchangeable with other palettes like their Grande Pro 1X, the Étendue palettes, and other Petit Four. So same size shadows as the Praline Epice. We've got 4 1.5 gram shadows with a 3-year shelf life, and these are made in the US. I have to say, I think this is a really nice palette. Now, as you can see from the eye swatches, the kind of the shimmery shade, the first shade that's kind of like scattered starlight, you can put this on with your fingers, or you can use a brush. I actually prefer a brush with this, that's more the opposite of this type of shade in general. Usually with these more firm pressed, soft shimmer shades, a finger application is going to be best, but I feel like the brush, if you're using some sort of shader brush, so something more small and densely packed, you're really going to get a nice even scattering of that. And it's a pretty concentrated shimmer. I think it really just brightens things up. The matte peachy pink shade is a great shade for my coloring as a base shade, but it's also really great to mix with some of the other shades here to kind of soften the tones of that. The purple eggplant shade, you can see it actually can go on pretty sheerly. You can sheer this out and get a softer tone of this. You can also blend it with that peachy pink matte and get a nice soft version of this as well. So I think it's a very versatile shade. And sometimes those deep shades, they can be a little scary because, you know, as soon as you make a little bit of a mess with something that deep, they can be really hard to clean up. And I would have to say that this is not true for that. And it also doesn't blend away to nothing. So it's really a nice balance. So props to Viseart for making like the perfect dark purple matte. I personally really like that one. Now the duochrome shade I think is gorgeous. This is going to be more firmly pressed in the pan. So this is going to be a shade that goes on better with a firm shader brush or a finger application to really get more of that, you know, color shift. This is also something that you could apply wet to get a little bit more color from this as well. But this is going to be more of a medium tone, and I think it's a gorgeous shade. I have to say, I think this is a really great quad. Between the two quads, it's really hard to pick one being a favorite because they are so very different. But I am such a sucker for purples. The Tyrian quad wins for me. All right, and before we move on to comparisons, Sadie is just here to say hello. If I've seemed out of breath, it's because I've had to stop filming 5 or 6 times to chase this one around. So she's very hyper right now. But we're almost done. Let's move on to the comparisons for Tyrian. I don't like putting her in the crate when I'm filming, but might have to start doing that again because she has learned how to open the doors. So anyway, this here is the Paris Étoile palette from Viseart. Now these here are, you can see that these are smaller. These are 1 gram shadows, so they're not interchangeable. But I did want to compare these 4 shades with 4 from the Paris palette. Now these first 2 shades here, we have kind of this pink shimmer and more of a nude peach. I'm going to put these right here, kind of right next to the second shade up. You can see that nude shade really blends in with my skin. You can barely see it. But you can see that the pink shimmer, it's going to be a little bit more pink than the peachy matte, but they are going to be pretty close in tone. This deep purple, I wanted to compare this to the purple here, and you can see that those look pretty much the same. This has ever so slightly more blue in it, but it's almost exactly the same. These two could be the same color, so I'm not even sure. They're that close. And then we don't have anything like the duochrome, but I did want to compare kind of this more metallic shade here from this palette. You can see this has a bit more red, but it's another pretty shade. You can see though overall that the sheen on this is going to be more red. And this has the red shimmer, so does the one in the Tyrian, but we do have kind of that greenish color flip in the Tyrian, which we don't have in the Paris. And then I also wanted to compare it to some shades in the new Violette Vespertine palette. This is one of the Étendu shades or palettes, and these are the same size, 1.5 grams, so you can easily mix and match these. We're going to start off with the second shade here, which looks the closest to that peachy pink. And you can see here that it is actually going to be, it's a little bit rosier. It's got a little bit more dusty rose to it. Then this one here, this kind of pink metallic, we'll compare this one with the duochrome shade, but again, you can see that it's going to be more of a red violet. We have a deep matte purple here. This is going to be a bit more, it's more dusty. They've got a little bit more gray in there, and there's also going to be a little bit more red in there. It's a slightly warmer purple, still cool tone. And we don't have anything like the Starlight Shimmer in either of these palettes, but let's go ahead and take a look at this metallic finish here. You can see that is a really rich, it's a rich rose with a touch of rose gold in it. And then we also have this more silvery shade I think those are some great shades as well. So although the colors are not dupes, you can see that you can still create some similar looks. So this here's the Tyrian quad. These are from the Petit Pro Paris Étoile or Paris Étoile. And then these are from the new Violette Vespertine palette, which is an étendu palette. So I hope these swatches have been helpful. Overall, I'm happy with both of these quads from Viseart. I think the formulas are great. We have such a nice mix of finishes in here. I love the color stories. And I feel like these two are going to become two of my most used from Viseart. So, you know, out of all of my favorites from the Petite Four from Viseart, I would say these two are going to be in my top 5. So really happy with these. I think they are fantastic. Let me know if you've tried them, what your thoughts are on them. And I'm so happy you were here with me today. Thank you so much. Happy holidays. I'll see you very soon.